This is Land of Havilah, 1 Chronicles 11. We should fill in some background from 1 and 2 Samuel. When Saul was king, he rebelled against Yahweh, so Yahweh told Samuel to anoint David. He said David was a man after his own heart. David had no outward qualifications. He was a fantastic shepherd, having killed a lion and a bear in defense of his flocks, and he could play the heck out of a handheld harp, 1 Samuel 16, 18, and 23. But as far as big accomplishments, that was about it. David went on to kill Goliath, became a commander in Saul's army, and was popular with everyone except Saul. Saul thought he was a threat. Saul couldn't contain his jealousy and tried to kill David more than once, so David went on the run. A few hundred Israelite men defected to David, 1 Samuel 22:2 and 23:13. They followed him and lived with him in various caves, forests, and deserts in and around Judah, trying to stay one step ahead of Saul and his army. They finally had to flee Israel completely and lived in Philistia. God was with them, though. After David and his men had been on the run for probably 5 or 10 years, the Philistines killed Saul at Mount Gilboa. With Saul no longer a threat, David asked Yahweh whether he should return to Judah. Yahweh said yes. David said, "Which city?" Yahweh said, "Hebron," 2 Samuel 2:1. So David returned and brought all his men with him. All Judah came together to make David king. Meanwhile, Saul's son Ishbosheth was king over the rest of Israel. Several years later, Ishbosheth was assassinated. Now, verse 1. Then all Israel gathered themselves to David to Hebron, saying, "Behold, we are your bone and your flesh. In times past, even when Saul was king, it was you who led out and brought in Israel. Yahweh your God said to you, 'You shall be shepherd of my people Israel, and you shall be prince over my people Israel.'" So all the elders of Israel came to the king to Hebron, and David made a covenant with them in Hebron before Yahweh, and they anointed David king over Israel, according to Yahweh's word by Samuel. Comment in verse 2, David used to lead Israel in and out, meaning in and out of battle, when he was commander under Saul. In verse 2, the men of Israel remembered Samuel's anointing on David as shepherd and prince over Israel, king in other words. Sometimes Yahweh avoided the word king because it was he who should have been their king, 1 Samuel 8:7 and 9:16. So David became king of Judah at age 30, reigning from Hebron, and king of all Israel at the age of 37 or 38, 2 Samuel 5:4 and 5. Coming up, David's first major accomplishment as king of all Israel. Verse 4. David and all Israel went to Jerusalem, also called Jebus, and the Jebusites, the inhabitants of the land, were there. Comment, Jebus of the Jebusites was on the border of Judah and Benjamin, Joshua 15:8. For hundreds of years, Judah didn't conquer it, Joshua 15:63, and neither did Benjamin, Judges 1:21, and there's no record they tried very much, so the Jebusites were confident it would never happen. When David lined up Israel against them, verse 5, the inhabitants of Jebus said to David, "You'll not come in here." Nevertheless, David took the stronghold of Zion, the same as David's city. Comment, Mount Zion was a natural fortification enhanced by the man-made Millo, which seems to have been a terrace structure to make the slope more difficult, plus a wall. In verse 5, David took it. How did he take it? Verse 6. David said, "Whoever strikes the Jebusites first shall be chief and captain." Joab, the son of Zeruiah, went up first and was made chief. Comment, Joab won his position as commander by being the first to strike the Jebusites. He happened to be David's nephew, son of David's sister Zeruiah, 1 Chronicles 2:16, along with his brothers Abishai and Asahel. Verse 7. David lived in the stronghold, therefore they called it David's city. He built the city all around, from Millo even around, and Joab repaired the rest of the city. David grew greater and greater, for Yahweh of armies was with him. Comment in verse 7, David moved his base of operations from Hebron to the newly conquered stronghold. They changed the name from Jebus to David's city and to Jerusalem after that. Mount Zion and its fortifications were the attraction of it. In verse 8, David and Joab repaired the city and made further improvements. In verse 9, David grew greater and greater because Yahweh of armies was with him. We tend to think naturalistically that people succeed because of some combination of talent and effort, but Yahweh is the bottom line. Now coming men who put their lives on the line to make David king and keep him king. Verse 10. Now these are the chief of the mighty men whom David had, who showed themselves strong with him in his kingdom, together with all Israel, to make him king according to Yahweh's word concerning Israel. This is the number of the mighty men whom David had. Jashobeam the son of the Hachmonite, chief of the 30, he lifted up his spear against 300 and killed them at one time. Comment, verse 11, Jashobeam seems to be a code name for Joab, just as 2 Samuel 23:8 seems to refer to Joab by a code name as well. The text leaves his real name out, probably because he discredited himself by committing 3 murders against high-ranking Israelites, including against David's son Absalom. In the end, Joab rebelled by supporting Adonijah rather than Solomon, 1 Kings 1:7 and 2:5. So why not leave Joab's name completely off the list? Because he did so much to support David. He was David's top commander in 99% of his battles. So you can't leave him off, but he was a triple murderer. Therefore, you can't give him too much credit either. He's a gray figure. Yahweh was certainly with him to do the amazing things he did, but at times he was unfaithful to David and to Yahweh. After Joab's second mention on the list of mighty men goes to verse 12. After him was Eleazar the son of Dodo the Ahohite, who was one of the 3 mighty men. He was with David at Pasdammim, and there the Philistines were gathered together to battle, where there was a plot of ground full of barley, and the people fled from before the Philistines. They stood in the middle of the plot, defended it, and killed the Philistines, and Yahweh saved them by a great victory. Comment, that was Eleazar. When everyone around him retreated, he stood firm in a field of barley, inspiring others to do so in verse 14, and swung his sword against the Philistines until his hand froze around it, 2 Samuel 23:10. It sounds like a case of muscle cramps in his hand. In verse 13, when he was able to pry his hand loose after the battle, his palm was bloody. The site of the battle was thereafter called Pasdammim in Hebrew, which is bloody palm. In verse 14, credit goes to Yahweh for what Eleazar did, but that doesn't diminish Eleazar's role. Yahweh gave him credit by listing his name and story here for all generations. Coming up in the days when David and his men were hiding from King Saul in the stronghold or rock or cave of Adullam, verse 15, 3 of the 30 chief men went down to the rock to David into the cave of Adullam, and the army of the Philistines were encamped in the valley of Rephaim. David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was in Bethlehem at that time. Comment, because of Saul's weakness, the Philistines were camped all the way up the valley of Rephaim to Bethlehem, which was David's hometown. Meanwhile, David sat in the cave of Adullam, and verse 17. David longed and said, "Oh, that one would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem, which is by the gate." Comment, David only meant to say that he missed home, and it pained him that the Philistines were occupying his hometown. He wasn't suggesting that anyone should actually go there and get him a drink of water, but just for the valor of it, verse 18. The 3 broke through the army of the Philistines and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate, and took it and brought it to David. But David would not drink any of it, but poured it out to Yahweh, and said, "My God forbid me that I should do this. Shall I drink the blood of these men who have put their lives in jeopardy? For they risked their lives to bring it." Therefore he would not drink it. The 3 mighty men did these things. Comment, the 3 mighty men were Joab, whom the text refuses to name, Eleazar in verse 12, and the third one is hard to pin down, but it might be Abishai coming up, verse 20. Abishai, the brother of Joab, he was chief of the 3, for he lifted up his spear against 300 and killed them, and had a name among the 3. Of the 3 he was more honorable than the 2, and was made their captain. However, he wasn't included in the 3. Comment, strange that in verse 20 Abishai was chief of the 3, and in verse 21 he wasn't included in the 3. It's another case of not being able to give full credit, most likely because he took part with his brother Joab in murdering Abner, 2 Samuel 3:30. Now coming up, David's man Benaiah, who commanded his elite troops, the Cherethites and Pelethites, verse 22. Benaiah, the son of Jehoiada, the son of a valiant man of Kabzeel, who had done mighty deeds, killed the 2 sons of Ariel of Moab. He also went down and killed a lion in the middle of a pit on a snowy day. He killed an Egyptian, a man of great stature, 5 cubits high. In the Egyptian's hand was a spear like a weaver's beam, and he went down to him with a staff, plucked the spear out of the Egyptian's hand, and killed him with his own spear. Benaiah the son of Jehoiada did these things, and had a name among the 3 mighty men. Behold, he was more honorable than the 30, but he didn't attain to the 3, and David set him over his guard. Comment: we have lots more mention about Benaiah from Samuel and the Kings, but no more of what he did here, killing the 2 sons of Ariel, killing the lion, and killing the Egyptian. In verse 25, he didn't attain to the top 3, but he ranks higher than the rest of the 30. Did these men really do all this? In verse 24, quote, Benaiah the son of Jehoiada did these things. There are 51 names in this passage, so some of them must be of the 30, and the rest honorable mentions, but there'll be no distinction from here on out. Verse 26. The mighty men of the armies also include Asahel, the brother of Joab. Comment: Asahel died chasing Abner. He was a good long-distance runner, which is why he was able to catch up with Abner, but he wasn't strong enough to survive combat with him, 2 Samuel 2:23. Asahel was brother of Joab and Abishai. Now to round out the chapter, the names of 45 more mighty men with no stories attached to them, still in verse 26. Elhanan, the son of Dodo of Bethlehem, Shemoth the Hororite, Helez the Pelonite, Ira the son of Akesh the Tekoite, Abiezer the Anathothite, Sibbekeh the Hushathite, Eleh the Ahohite, Mahare the Netophathite, Heled the son of Baanah the Netophathite, Ithai the son of Rabbe of Gibeah of the children of Benjamin, Benaiah the Pirathonite, Hooray of the brooks of Gaash, Abiel the Arbathite, Asmeveth the Bahurumite, Eliabah the Shaalbanite, the sons of Hashem the Gizonite, Jonathan the son of Shagi the Hararite, Ahiam the son of Sakar the Hararite, Eliphal the son of Ur, Hefer the Mecharathite, Ahijah the Pelonite, Hezro the Carmelite, Naareh the son of Ezbeh, Joel the brother of Nathan, Mibhar the son of Hagri, Zelek the Ammonite, Nahareh the Berothite, the armor-bearer of Joab the son of Zeruiah, Ira the Ithrite, Gareb the Ithrite, Uriah the Hittite, Zabad the son of Aleh, Adinah the son of Shiza the Reubenite, a chief of the Reubenites, and 30 with him, Hanan the son of Maacah, and Josaphat the Mithnite, Uzziah the Ashterathite, Shalmah and Jael the sons of Hotham the Aurorite, Jediel the son of Shimri, and Johah his brother the Tizite, Eliel the Mahavite, and Jerebeh and Joshaviah the sons of El-Naam, and Ithma the Moabite, Eliel and Obed, and Jaasiel the Mazobaite. Comment: we recognize Uriah the Hittite on the list. He was the victim of David's adultery. He was one of 3 foreigners on the list. To summarize, there are 51 names in the passage. We would say today they earned military decorations. There's a reference to a top 30, but we don't know which ones they are. There's a reference to a top 3, which are probably Joab, Eleazar, and Abishai. Of the 3, Eleazar is the only one we didn't know a lot about, but the story about him holding his ground in the barley field is maybe the most awesome thing after David killing Goliath. Quote, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me, Philippians 4:13. Quote, 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall chase 10,000, and your enemies shall fall before you by the sword, Leviticus 26:8. Quote, be strong and courageous. Don't be afraid or scared of them, for Yahweh your God himself is who goes with you. He will not fail you nor forsake you, Deuteronomy 31:6. 1 Chronicles 12 is next.